All right, this is the first time ever with palette cam and easel cam. And there'll be a learning curve, but let's try it out. Let's get started. This is my first time with a palette cam and an easel cam. And so we're going to see how this goes. I'm sure there'll be a learning curve. We're going to concentrate mostly on the palette cam because you've seen me do a lot of video of demonstrations by now. So the first thing that I do is I mix up a neutral. That's a Naples yellow, a cerulean blue, and a permanent rose. I'm going to stick that in. And in a minute, there we go. There's the easel cam. I made the dab, and now I'm going to put in the background color. Now, the challenge with this painting is that the teacup is completely clear. There's an orange in the picture as well, but most of the teacup ends up being some variation of the background color because the clear glass is basically just like a window pane. It just happens to be formed into a round shape so it can hold liquids. So I have to find all the colors in that shape. So I put in the background, and now I'm mixing up some, I thought I would go and mix some oranges, but that was a mistake. I need to get something established, a lot more neutrals established before putting in any color. So I took some Naples yellow and put that in the places that somebody else might put white out or some masking fluid. I don't use that, but I need a placeholder. So I'm putting that in the places that I know I want to keep white. In the end, it will look white because everything else will be darker compared to it. So now I'm back to realizing I need to get busy with those neutrals. I'm doing a variation of what I started with in the background, which is cerulean blue, Naples yellow, and a little bit of that permanent rose. I'm trying to get something that's going to be darker than what I had in the background, because that's the way it appears in the photograph. I can see some darker shapes and elements in the cup. I want to emphasize that this is a 7 by 11 sheet of Arches paper on, it's cold press and it's on a block. And the brush is a 1-inch wide bristle brush. So it's a big brush. There's the dark that I'm looking for. Now you see, I made a lot of test dabs in order to find the dark that I wanted. And I thought to myself, I want something dark and I want something cool, because that's the side of the cup that has a little bit of shadow in it. And then I'm using the brush to carve where things go around. As the shape started to go around the cup, it picked up a little bit of orange. So I put that in, just a slight bit of orange in there, because those are connectors. Anytime that I can find a solid, a color that fits an area well, that's terrific. But if I can also insert some connecting color, then I'm going to do that too. The lighter side of the cup had more orange, which is being reflected from the very large orange shape in the background. So nothing looks like anything yet, and it's not supposed to look like anything yet, but I am starting to calibrate and see lots of color dabs, and I'm making decisions about what's warm and what's cool. If it's warm, then I'm going to use a little bit of grayed down orange, and if it's cool, I'm going to add a little bit of cerulean blue into it. But these are all variations of that original background color that I put in. Because like I said, the actual cup itself doesn't exist. It is just refractions of light. So it's really important that as everything relates, that I don't create anything that looks like a solid. It has to look as if I'm looking through the glass. Now I thought I would get busy with the orange, so that's what's happening there. That's a pretty saturated. I know that the orange is going to be the most saturated part of this painting because it's a solid. And if I get that solid in and make it look solid, then it will make the illusion of transparency better. But you can see how much mixing goes on. You're into Naples yellow and then into a little bit of cadmium yellow, then over to red, adding a little bit cadmium red. I am just working it as hard as I can. All right, these were the sides, the very sides of the cup. where the most saturated color coming from the orange was, but it's not as saturated as the orange is going to be itself. So it's a little bit muted. It's got a little bit of gray left over that was on my brush, and that's going in now. Now, even from this distance, I can see that there's starting to be a cup that's emerging, but it's a slow process. I think this is probably 4 times as fast as I actually worked. The whole painting took about 30 minutes to do. So now I'm looking for any place where I see some relative dark places. And those ended up being, you can see the mix is a little bit of cerulean blue with some Naples yellow in it, which is kind of a green. And I'm not surprised that there was quite a bit of green in the cup. It's a gray green for sure, because if you look at the color dabs, almost all the color dabs are gray. But they're variations of gray. Some are bluish, some are greenish. But the green comes from I don't know where, probably, well, from the orange and a little bit of something else cool that was in the room. Maybe the sky itself. I don't know. I don't know where all these colors come from. But when I say colors, I'm saying grays. These are all variations of gray. Now I need to put in, I've been working with things that are relatively light. Now it's important to get some of the more weighty shapes in. So everything in this clear glass, everything is probably a value of 2, maybe 2.5 to 3. You know, I can't really depend on value differences to create shape here. I have to look at what's warm and what's cool. And what's cool tends to be on the side of the cup that's on the right, and the cool, did I say that right? Yeah, the side that's on the right is in shadow, or a little bit more shadow, and the side that's on the left is lighter. Now I've cleaned the palette. Now I'm really going to go for it. Now I'm going to go for the solid object. It's so important that that solid object be as saturated as possible. No gray in there at all. And it has to be decisive, no indecision. So I've got quinacridone gold. That's the color that's going in right there. I mixed my own orange. And now comes some quinacridone sienna. And you saw me pick up a little bit of cerulean blue to put in that quinacridone sienna. And that's because I could see it. And I could see it, and I know it'll be a connector because I've used quite a bit of cerulean blue in the painting so far. But not enough that it grays it down. Just enough that it'll be a connector. Now I'm working on the solid form. I'm going to really go in there. Like I said, this is a really big brush, so I can't get precious. I have to look at big shapes. The thing that's fascinating about painting glass is the refractions, you know, the different things that it does in space. And so I'm looking for these weird shapes that happen where the solid orange is when when it hits the round glass, or when the round glass goes through it. So I've got the dark side of the orange in without using any blue or anything that's violet, anything that's going to make it dull. This has to be the brightest element of all, this orange. It's so important that it be super, super bright, as much pigment as possible, to contrast with with all the neutrals. But the neutrals at the end of the day are you know, they're what made the painting. You know, the structure of the painting. Now I'm mixing a neutral which is going to be the shadow of the orange. You can see how much orange is in that neutral. And the reason for that, there's some cerulean blue with a little bit of the orange. And the reason for that is I need a connector. If I was to put in something that didn't make sense, all these different elements would look like little pieces of I don't know, they just wouldn't go together. So it's really important that my shadow have some orange in it, have some cerulean blue in it. But at the same time, I have to be really aware that, that I've established a certain range of value from, say, 2 to 3 at the most. And if I violate that, then my transparency won't exist. And that's what's hard, because by about here, I've come down a long path. It's taken me a long time to get to this spot. Look at all the color dabs I've done. That's a lot of figuring out, a lot of looking at things next to other things, trying to figure out, is that the right color? Is that the right Is that the right saturation? So there's no going back. The painting is either going to succeed or it won't succeed. But there is no, once I'm in this far, I've waded into deep water, and the only thing to do is to keep going. Now I need to make it look like that cup goes in, into the bottom, and so it's dark. When I say dark, everything I say is relative. The lights are relatively light, the darks are relatively dark. So I'm going in and putting in some cerulean blue into that dark. But also notice, because I really want to emphasize palette cam in this video, is see how clean the palette stays? Because I don't let colors go into other colors. If I'm going to have them join each other, I'm going to have them join on the paper, so they join each other wet into wet. But I don't do it on the palette if possible, because I want those colors to not turn into, well, if I let them bleed into each other, I would end up with just more neutrals. And I've already established what my neutrals are. Now I need to keep my color as clean as it's possible to keep it. So I found some more orange once I started looking. Once you're about almost a half an hour into painting, you start seeing more things than you did at the beginning. You just start seeing, oh, wait, I think I see some orange coming on one side of the plate. I didn't see that before. And now the original orange in the back, the fruit itself, wasn't saturated enough. So I'm going to go in and give it another coat. And I left those colors on the palette. I've already established what they were. Again, remember, the important thing about the orange, meaning the fruit orange, is there is no color to gray it down. It has to be super saturated in order for me to get what I want in the end, which is the effect. But where it casts its orangeness, that's where I need to calibrate and find where I can make things a little bit more neutral, but leaning toward orange if I see warmth. So that's what I'm doing. I'm making this sound like it's a torturous process, and it's really not. It's just really fun to get in this world where nothing else exists. I'm sure there were dogs barking, there were probably phones ringing. I don't know what was going on, but I was happy in my painter brain. The other thing that I was really happy about with this painting is that it uses complementary colors quite a bit. There's quite a bit of blue in it, and there's quite a bit of orange. And as you know, those are complementary colors. And anytime you're working with complementary colors, they're just going to enhance each other. They just glom onto each other. They bring out the best. It's like a really good friendship. They bring out the best in each other. So now, even though it's small and you can see palette cam, you can see that the thing that I'm painting is starting to look like it has a certain amount of mass, which it will at the end. It will look like a cup that will hold something, even though it's completely transparent. We're getting near the very end of the painting now, and look at all those color dabs. Wow, so many color dabs. Some of them I used, some of them I didn't. There I am. This is the first time I brought in a darker element. I'm bringing some ultramarine blue to the party. I don't usually like to bring something in that I haven't used prior to now, but I felt like I needed it. I needed a little bit of ultramarine blue. And these are very tiny spots where I saw on the edge that it was just darker for a moment. I could have left them out. It didn't make or break the painting. By the time you get this far along, nothing's going to make or break the painting. You either got something or you don't. Let's see what happens now. I think I might have reinforced just a little bit of darkness darkness on that right side of the painting, because that's where things were in shade. But it's very, very slight. I'm just sneaking up on things now. No major decisions to make. The most major decision to make at this point is not to overpaint, to know when to stop. So I wanted you to see palette cam so you can see how clean everything stays, how separate everything stays, how you can mix colors and carefully work toward getting the color and the value that you want. So remember to keep the whites of your paper white, your paints wet, mass for value, mix for color. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, please do. At least 80% of people who watch these do not subscribe, so please do that. And I will get better at the palette cam. Hopefully I can get them coordinated to each other. That would be ideal. But for a first time out, this was a good go. Okay, um, see you next time. Bye bye.